الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this episode of In the Shade of Ramadan. Inshallah, today we're going to be talking about the importance of dhikr. Ramadan is actually the month of dhikr because as we feel hungry every day, every time our stomach growls, every time we have pains of thirst and hunger, we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what dhikr is. It is remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And throughout the day, as we're hungry, we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only with our stomachs, but also, inshallah, with our tongues. Ibn Taymiyyah once talked about dhikr, and he said that dhikr to the human heart is like what water is to fish. And he said, what happens to a fish when it is taken out of water? Similarly, what happens to a human being, to a Muslim, once they are taken out of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And again, it's a very, very easy act. As a student, walking from class to class, as a mother who is busy with her children, as an old person or a young person, dhikr is actually one of the easiest acts of ibadah. And no matter how busy you are, you have time to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the most amazing things about glorifying Allah is that whenever we glorify Him, you remember how strong He is, and you remember how He protects us, we also then feel stronger. We also then feel that we're more able to do whatever is in front of us. Whether you feel like you're struggling through a test, just a few minutes of dhikr and all of a sudden that big problem seems very small. And subhanAllah, we wonder, why is this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers this question at the end of Surah Al-Hajj. He says,
فأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة واعتصموا بالله هو مولاكم فنعم المولى ونعم النصير.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is saying, if you hold fast to Him, He will protect you and He will help you. So when we make dhikr, we feel His power, and we also know that He is the only one who can settle our affairs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us in the Quran, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. When you remember me, I remember you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remember us each and every time that we remember Him. And this on its own is an honor. SubhanAllah, this is one of the impacts or the effects that dhikr has on us, is that we would be honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever we honor Him, He honors us. We feel also, when we are in a state of dhikr, much more happy. And subhanAllah, a lot of times people can't understand why Muslims fast. Why do we starve ourselves in the month of Ramadan? And they don't realize that as we're starving our bodies, and as we're starving and we're thirsty, we're actually feeding our souls. And we're so happy to do this every year for 30 days straight. SubhanAllah, sisters in the summertime, college-age sisters, high school sisters, are always telling me, I can't wait for Ramadan, in the middle of the summer. And non-Muslims can never understand this. I remember once it happened to me in high school where a sister just turned to me and said, oh, I can't wait for Ramadan. And non-Muslim asked, what's that? And I answered that it's a month where we fast from sunrise to sunset. And the non-Muslim was shocked, and they were like, why are you going to look forward to that? And no matter how much we tried to explain to them, they really didn't understand. And subhanAllah, it's something you have to experience. And again, this is the month of dhikr. This is the month that we remember Allah the most. And we should keep up this ibadah after the month of Ramadan. And again, it's very simple. How do we do it? There's a few ways I will mention here today. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned, كلمتان خفيفتان على اللسان ثقيلتان في الميزان حبيبتان إلى الرحمن سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم. These are two things that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said is very light on our tongues and yet very heavy on the scales, and also very beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallahi wa bihamdi wa subhanallah al-azim. And these can be said anywhere. And all it takes is for you to engage your heart and engage your mind when you're saying it. A famous scholar once talked about his morning and evening dhikr, and he described it as his breakfast and his dinner. And subhanAllah, this is how we feed our souls in this month. Our breakfast and our dinner in Ramadan is our dhikr. A book of dhikr that I would like to recommend to you is a compilation of different adhkar and verses from the Quran that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would do himself in the morning and in the evening. This book is called Al-Ma'thurat, and it was compiled by Imam Hassan al-Banna. A third form of dhikr that is actually really easy is just to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, one of his examples of doing this is right after Ta'if. And he complained to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he said, as long as you are not angry with me, then I don't care. After his persecution, he went and spoke to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of us can do this, it's very easy. And when you talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout your day, you feel His presence. And that is a wonderful feeling, to feel Him with you when you're walking, and to feel Him with you when you're sitting in class, and to feel Him with you when you're making iftar. And in closing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us that this will happen with dhikr, when He tells us in the Quran, and surely in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Thank you so much again for joining us on In the Shade of Ramadan.